First contact fears. The Calarian Defense Network's primary monitoring station hung like a crystalline snowflake in the void, its pristine white surfaces reflecting the light of 3 distant suns. Inside, Senior Monitor Vax-Eth's peripheral sensors tingled with an unfamiliar sensation. Something was wrong. Primary Monitor called out one of her subordinates, their bioluminescent patches pulsing with anxiety. Unknown signature detected at the edge of the 7th quadrant. Vax-Eth glided to the central observation sphere, her crystalline exoskeleton catching the soft blue light of the monitoring arrays. The signature was unlike anything she'd seen in her 2 centuries of service. Most species vessels followed the natural laws of spacetime, leaving predictable ripples in the quantum foam. This object danced. Magnification, she ordered, her voice crystals resonating with authority. The holographic display zoomed in, revealing a vessel that seemed to defy Calarian aesthetics. Where their ships were organic, flowing forms grown from living crystal, this craft was all sharp angles and deliberate geometries. It bristled with what appeared to be weapon ports, though they were unlike any weapons the Calarians had encountered. Analysis? Vax-Eth demanded. The vessel's power signature is inconsistent. Primary Monitor. It appears to be operating on multiple technological principles simultaneously. Our predictive matrices cannot establish a baseline. That was troubling. The Calarian Defense Network had encountered 17 different spacefaring species over the millennia, and all of them followed recognizable technological progression paths. This vessel seemed to incorporate multiple technological philosophies at once, as if its creators had refused to commit to a single approach. Launch the greeting crystals, Vax-Eth ordered, following first contact protocols. The station released a cluster of perfectly formed crystalline structures, each containing the mathematical and cultural basics of Calarian civilization encoded in their atomic structure. It was how first contact had been established with every known species. The unknown vessel's response was immediate and unexpected. Instead of accepting or analyzing the crystals, it projected an energy field that caught them in a complex dance of forces. The crystals began moving in patterns that, to Vax-Eth's horror and fascination, perfectly mimicked the atomic structure of various elements. They decoded our entire chemical communication system in seconds, whispered her chief analyst. They're not just responding to our greeting. They're showing us they understand the fundamental principles behind it. Before Vax-Eth could respond, new data flooded their sensors. The vessel was transmitting information about itself, but not in any single format. It was simultaneously broadcasting in electromagnetic waves, quantum entanglement patterns, and what appeared to be modulated gravitational pulses. Each channel carried the same message in a different way, demonstrating mastery of multiple communication technologies. Primary Monitor. Her security chief's voice crystals vibrated with concern. The vessel's weapon ports. Vax-Eth watched as the geometric patterns on the ship's hull shifted. What they had assumed were weapon ports began transforming, revealing themselves to be modular systems capable of reconfiguring into either offensive or defensive configurations. The message was clear. We can fight if we must, but we choose not to. They're not following any known first contact protocols. Vax-Eth observed. Every species we've encountered has approached with either pure scientific curiosity or military caution. These beings, she paused, her crystalline mind struggling to process the implications. They're showing us everything they can do, while simultaneously demonstrating their restraint. The vessel continued its approach, maintaining a distance that was close enough to show trust, but far enough to avoid appearing threatening. Its power signatures continued their complex dance, each fluctuation revealing new capabilities, while carefully avoiding any pattern that could be interpreted as weapon charging sequences. Primary Monitor, we're receiving a new transmission. It's in our language. They've analyzed our crystalline communication structure and replicated it. The message that appeared in their holographic display was elegant in its simplicity. We are humanity. We come with open hands and ready shields. Your space is beautiful. We'd love to learn how you created these crystal structures. Would you like to learn how we built our ship? Vax-Eth felt her crystalline structure vibrate with an emotion she hadn't experienced in decades. Excitement. These humans had taken everything the Kilarians considered to be proper first contact procedure and turned it into an opportunity for mutual learning. They had weapons that could probably break the station apart, yet they were asking about crystal formation. "Prepare a response," she ordered, her voice crystals humming with new harmonics. "And contact the High Council. They need to know that we've encountered something unprecedented. A species that has mastered the art of turning military power into diplomatic opportunity." As she watched the human vessel maintain its perfect position relative to the station, Vax-Eth realized that the Kilarian Defense Network's protocols would need significant revision. They had prepared for aggressive species and peaceful species, but never for one that was so comfortable with being both at once. The humans had achieved something her people had long thought impossible. They had created uncertainty in a crystalline mind. And somehow, Vax-Eth suspected that was exactly what they had intended to do. The demonstration. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Adaptable, watching the crystalline alien station shimmer against the backdrop of 3 distant suns. Her ship's quantum sensors were painting a fascinating picture of the structure's composition. It wasn't just made of crystal. It was a single massive crystalline computer, using atomic structures to process information in ways humanity had only theorized about. "Their High Council representatives have arrived, Captain," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from the communication station. "They're concerned about our weapon configurations." Chen allowed herself a small smile. "Of course they are, because they're only seeing what they expect to see." She turned to her crew, noting their focused expressions. Every person on the bridge had been chosen for this mission not just for their skills, but for their ability to think beyond conventional military doctrine. "Let's show them what the Adaptable really is," she said. "Begin configuration shift alpha." The ship's hull began to move, not with the crude mechanical transformations of earlier human vessels, but with the fluidity of programmable matter. What the Kilarians had assumed were weapon ports morphed into sensor arrays, communication dishes, and scientific instruments. The ship's apparent military profile transformed into something that looked more like a flying research station. Through the main viewport, Chen could see the crystalline station pulsing with new patterns of light, their equivalent of excited chatter, according to the xenologist's reports. "They're broadcasting on all channels," Rodriguez reported. "Their translation matrix is, they're asking if we're shapeshifters." "Send them the technical package we prepared," Chen ordered. "Let them see exactly how we do it." The data stream that flowed from the Adaptable to the Kilarian station contained the basic principles of human programmable matter technology, not the classified details, but enough to show that the ship's transformation wasn't biological or magical. It was the product of human engineering pushed to its logical extreme. "Captain," her science officer, Dr. Patel, called out, "they're attempting to analyze our hull with crystalline scanning beams. The patterns suggest they're trying to understand how we can maintain structural integrity during transformation." "Let them look," Chen replied, "and prepare for configuration shift beta. Let's show them something really interesting." The Adaptable's hull rippled again, but this time instead of just changing shape, it began to resonate with the Kilarians' crystalline technology. The ship's surface developed patterns that mimicked the atomic structure of their station, creating a bridge between human and Kilarian engineering principles. "Their High Council members are vibrating," Rodriguez reported, struggling to interpret the alien behavior. "I think we just violated several of their assumptions about material science." Chen nodded. This was exactly the reaction they had hoped for. Humanity had learned early in its spacefaring history that the best way to establish peaceful relations wasn't to appear either weak or strong. It was to demonstrate adaptability. The Adaptable wasn't just a ship, it was a physical demonstration of humanity's core philosophy. New transmission from their station. Rodriguez announced. They're asking if we would be willing to share our insights into dynamic structural engineering in exchange for information about their crystalline computing technology. Now we're getting somewhere, Chen said. Tell them we'd be honored, but suggest that first, we might want to discuss the real reason we're here. The bridge crew tensed slightly. This was the crucial moment they had been working toward. The ship's transformations hadn't just been for show. They had been carefully calculated to prepare the Calarians for news that would challenge their crystalline worldview even further. Bringing up the long-range sensor data now, Dr. Puddle reported. The main screen filled with images of what appeared to be cracks in space itself, rifts in reality that their scientists had detected spreading through this sector of space. Send them our analysis, Chen ordered. Show them why we really came to their space, not to demonstrate our technology, but because we detected these rifts heading toward their territory and knew they would need our help to face them. The data streamed across space, telling a story that the Adaptable's transformations had been carefully preparing the Calarians to accept. Reality itself was becoming mutable in this region of space, and survival would require the ability to adapt that humanity had mastered. Chen watched the crystalline station's reactions through multiple sensor feeds. The patterns of light racing through its structure spoke of rapid, intense discussions. The Calarians were facing a threat to everything they understood about the universe's fundamental nature. But thanks to the Adaptable's carefully choreographed demonstration, they had just spent the last hour learning that the impossible was merely improbable, and that adaptation was not just possible but essential. They're responding, Rodriguez reported, his voice carrying a note of relief. The High Council. They're requesting immediate joint scientific consultations. They're saying that our ability to shift between states while maintaining operational coherence might be the key to understanding these rifts. Tell them we agree, Chen said, allowing herself to relax slightly, and inform them that the Adaptable's next configuration is specifically designed for collaborative research. We didn't just come to warn them about the rifts. We came prepared to work with them to find a solution. As her crew began preparations for the next phase of their mission, Chen reflected on how far humanity had come. They had learned to turn their warships into bridges, their weapons into tools, and their fears into opportunities for cooperation. The Adaptable wasn't just carrying humanity's technology. It was carrying their hope that the galaxy's challenges could be met not through rigid strength, but through the willingness to change and grow together. Breaking protocol. The joint research chamber aboard the Calarian station hummed with an unusual harmony, the resonance of crystalline computing matrices blending with the quantum processors of human technology. Dr. Paddle stood before a holographic display showing the growing rifts in space-time, while his Calarian counterpart, Chief Researcher Ixel, projected data through her crystalline form. The rifts aren't just spreading, Paddle explained, his dark eyes reflecting the swirling patterns of the display. They're learning. Each new breach adapts to our previous containment methods. Ixel's crystalline structure vibrated with concern. Our models suggest total structural failure of local space within 48 standard cycles. The crystal lattice of reality itself appears to be fracturing. Captain Chen watched from the chamber's entrance, noting how the human and Calarian scientists had begun mirroring each other's movements, Patel adopting the precise, geometric gestures of the Calarians, while Ixel's normally rigid patterns had become more fluid, more human. Primary monitor. Chen called to Vaxeth, who stood nearby. I believe it's time we showed you what the Adaptable's final configuration can do. The primary monitor's crystalline form pulsed with uncertainty. The High Council has not yet approved further technological demonstrations. Protocol requires. Protocol assumes we have time. Chen interrupted, earning shocked pulses of light from the Calarian observers. Those rifts will reach your core worlds in less than 2 days. We need to act now. Vaxeth's surface rippled with conflicting patterns, the equivalent of a human frown. You propose violating our most sacred operational directives. I propose saving lives, Chen replied. Dr. Patel, show them the simulation. The holographic display shifted, showing the adaptable undergoing its most dramatic transformation yet. The ship's programmable matter reconfigured into something that barely resembled a vessel, more like a living patch of space-time itself. The rifts are caused by reality attempting to adapt to some external force, Patel explained. Our ship can serve as a template, showing local space-time how to adapt without breaking. But we'll need your crystalline computing technology to process the calculations fast enough. Ixal moved closer to the display, her crystalline form refracting the light in complex patterns. This would require integrating our systems directly with your vessel. Such a merger has never been attempted. The protocols explicitly forbid. The protocols were written before reality started breaking down, Chen said firmly. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is admit that our old rules no longer serve us. Vax-Eth's form stilled, taking on the perfect clarity that indicated deep thought among her kind. The High Council will object. They will say we are risking everything on an untested human theory. With respect, Primary Monitor. Chen stepped forward, her reflection multiplying through Vax-Eth's crystalline surface. That's exactly why it might work. The rifts are adapting to known patterns, both yours and ours, but a true fusion of our technologies. That's something entirely new. The chamber fell silent save for the subtle harmonics of the two species' technologies interacting. The Kilarian scientists' lights pulsed in rapid, complex patterns, their version of intense discussion. Captain Chen waited, knowing that pushing harder would only reinforce their instinct to follow protocol. Finally, Vax-Eth spoke, her voice crystals resonating at a new frequency. My entire existence has been dedicated to following and enforcing protocol. But protocols exist to preserve life. If following them now leads to destruction. She turned to Ixal. Begin the integration procedures. I will accept full responsibility before the High Council. The next hours were a blur of activity. Human engineers worked alongside Kilarian crystal shapers, creating hybrid interfaces that shouldn't have been possible. The adaptable's programmable matter learned to resonate at crystalline frequencies, while Kilarian computing matrices adapted to process quantum algorithms. Integration at 60%, Patel reported, his voice tense with concentration. The ship's matter is successfully mimicking the crystalline computational structure, but maintaining stability is. He was cut off by a sudden alarm. One of the nearest rifts had accelerated, tearing through space faster than their models had predicted. Time to impact with the station. 15 minutes, Ixal announced, her crystal form pulsing with urgent patterns. Chen looked at Vax-Eth. We're not ready for a full integration, but we're out of time. We need to attempt the procedure now. The primary monitor's surface showed chaotic, swirling patterns, the Kilarian equivalent of intense internal conflict. Then, with a clarity that surprised even her own staff, she announced, "Do it. Sometimes survival requires embracing the unknown." The adaptable began its final transformation, its hull flowing like liquid metal as it merged with the crystalline matrices the Kilarians had prepared. Human programmable matter interwove with alien crystal, creating something entirely new. A hybrid structure that pulsed with both the geometric precision of Kilarian technology and the adaptive fluidity of human engineering. As the rift approached, reality itself seemed to hold its breath. The merged human Kilarian creation reached out, not with weapons or shields, but with a new pattern of existence, showing the damaged space-time how to heal itself without breaking. For a moment, everything hung in perfect balance. Then the rift changed. Instead of tearing space apart, it began to reform, following the template created by their combined technology. The impossible had become possible through the merger of human adaptability and Kilarian precision. "It's working," Patel whispered, watching the readings. "The rift is actually rewriting itself according to our hybrid pattern." Chen turned to Vax-Eth, seeing her own relief mirrored in the primary monitor's crystalline surface. "This is just the beginning," she said softly. "Together, we can." Another alarm cut through the chamber. More rifts were appearing, larger than before. But now, instead of facing them with fear, the combined human-Calarian crew stood ready, their differences transformed into their greatest strength. The common enemy. The massive viewing chamber of the Calarian station had been transformed into a joint operations center, its crystalline walls now interwoven with human holographic projectors. Captain Chen watched as dozens of new rifts bloomed across the tactical display, their chaotic patterns threatening to tear apart the fabric of local space. "They're evolving," Dr. Patil announced, his fingers dancing across a hybrid control interface. "The rifts are no longer just adapting to our solutions, they're anticipating them." Vax-Eth's crystalline form pulsed with deep violet light, a sign of intense concentration. It's as if they possess some form of collective intelligence. Each new rift learns from the ones we've sealed. The hybrid technology they created had successfully closed several rifts, but for each one they sealed, 3 more appeared. The adaptable hung in space beside the station, its merged human-Calarian systems straining to maintain the template that helped stabilize local spacetime. What if that's exactly what's happening? Chen stepped forward, her reflection fragmenting through the crystalline walls. What if these aren't just random tears in space? What if they're probes? The chamber fell silent as both humans and Calarians processed this suggestion. Ixal moved closer to the display, her crystalline structure refracting light in complex patterns of thought. Analyzing the rift patterns with that hypothesis, she chimed, her voice crystals resonating at research frequencies. Captain Chen may be correct. The distribution and evolution of the rifts show signs of purposeful exploration. Something is testing our defenses, Vax-Eth concluded, her form shifting to a deeper blue. But what could exist in a state capable of weaponizing reality itself? Before anyone could respond, new alarms shrieked through the chamber. The tactical display flared with urgent warnings as a massive distortion began to form at the edge of their sensor range. "That's no probe," Paddle said, his voice tight with concern. "Energy readings are off the scale. Whatever's been testing us, I think it's about to make an appearance." The distortion grew, twisting space into impossible geometries. Through the viewport, they could see actual light bending around the anomaly, creating a visual effect like reality being poured down a drain. "All Calarian vessels, maintain formation," Vax-Eth ordered, her voice crystals projecting at emergency frequencies. "Coordinate your crystal matrices with the human template. We cannot allow this breach to reach our populated systems." Chen watched as the Calarian ships moved into position around the adaptable, their crystalline hulls beginning to pulse in sync with her vessel's hybrid systems. It was a beautiful sight. 2 completely different approaches to space travel finding harmony in crisis. "Dr. Patel, researcher Ixal, what happens if we invert our approach?" Chen asked, an idea forming. "Instead of showing space how to heal, what if we show this entity how to communicate?" Ixal's form shimmered with surprise. "Reconfigure our template from a repair pattern to a communication matrix. The energy requirements would be—" "We can handle it," Chen interrupted. "The adaptable's programmable matter can channel power from the Calarian ships through our hybrid systems. Instead of fighting this thing, let's try to understand it." Vax-Eth's surface showed chaotic patterns of internal debate before clearing to perfect transparency, her species equivalent of a decisive nod. "Do it. If this entity is truly intelligent, then we must attempt communication before combat." The next minutes were a blur of activity as human and Calarian engineers worked to reconfigure their merged technology. The adaptable's hull flowed like liquid crystal, forming new patterns that resonated with both species' understanding of physics and communication. The massive distortion continued to grow, but now they could see structure within its chaos, patterns that suggested consciousness and purpose. The hybrid fleet held position, their combined technology reaching out not with weapons, but with an offering of dialogue. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the distortion responded, not with violence, but with patterns of its own, complex geometries that reflected and built upon the templates they had created. "It's a language," Pytel breathed, watching the data stream across his console. The rifts weren't weapons. They were attempts to speak. This entity, it exists in a state where the difference between communication and reality is meaningless. "Then we have made first contact twice today," Vax-Eth observed, her crystal structure showing patterns of wonder. "First with each other, and now with something beyond either of our understanding." Chen smiled as she watched human and Kilarian experts working together to decode the entity's messages. What had started as a potential war had transformed into a partnership, and that partnership had led them to an even greater discovery. "Primary monitor," she said softly. "I believe both our species have protocols for this situation." Vax-Eth's form shimmered with what Chen had learned to recognize as amusement. "Indeed, Captain. Though perhaps we should write new ones together. After all, the old protocols never anticipated humans." Above them, the entity continued its complex dance of communication, its patterns growing more refined as it learned to interact with their hybrid technology. The crisis wasn't over. They still had to establish meaningful dialogue and understand this being's intentions. But Chen knew that together, humanity and the Kilarians could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The greatest discovery hadn't been the entity or even their hybrid technology. It was the realization that true strength comes not from power or protocols, but from the willingness to adapt and grow together. A new understanding. 3 weeks had passed since first contact with the entity, and the Joint Human-Kilarian Research Center had transformed the space around the station into something unprecedented. The Adaptable now floated at the heart of a vast crystalline network, its programmable matter interfaced with Kilarian technology to maintain constant communication with their new dimensional visitor. Captain Chen stood in the observation dome, watching the entity's latest manifestation. It no longer appeared as a chaotic rift, but as a carefully controlled distortion in spacetime, its patterns shifting in harmony with the hybrid technology they created. "The entity has shared another data burst," Dr. Pytel reported, working at a console that seamlessly blended human and Kilarian interfaces. "It's extraordinary. They exist in a universe where mathematical principles we consider fundamental are as mutable as programming code." Vax-Eth's crystalline form resonated with deep azure patterns, a sign of profound contemplation. "Their reality is fluid, yet they maintain perfect coherence. Much like your programmable matter, Captain, but on a cosmic scale. Which is why they were drawn to this sector." Chen nodded. They detected the unique combination of Kilarian crystal computing and human adaptive technology. "We weren't just potential allies. We were proof that their form of existence was possible in our universe." The entity's latest communication rippled through the hybrid systems, causing the station's crystal walls to shine with new frequencies of light. Ixel, who had become their primary xenolinguist for entity communications, moved her crystalline form closer to the main sensor array. "They're offering us something," she chimed, her voice crystals vibrating with excitement. "Not just knowledge of their physics, but understanding of how to safely implement it. They want to teach us how to stabilize the boundary between our different states of reality." Chen exchanged looks with Vax-Eth, both leaders understanding the magnitude of this moment. The entity wasn't just making first contact, it was offering to help both their species take the next step in their evolution. "The High Council is requesting guidance," Vax-Eth announced, her surface showing complex patterns of institutional uncertainty. "This goes beyond any protocol or precedent. The entity's offers of knowledge could revolutionize our understanding of reality itself. But the risks are exactly why we need to proceed together." Chen completed the thought. "Your precision and our adaptability, Kilarian stability, and human innovation. We've already proven what we can achieve when we combine our strengths." As if in response to her words, the entity's manifestation shifted, creating a display that merged mathematical precision with organic fluidity. Through their hybrid systems, they could now understand its intent. It was showing them a vision of future cooperation, where the boundaries between human, Calarian, and entity technology blurred into something greater than the sum of their parts. Primary monitor. Chen turned to Vaxeth. I suggest we form a permanent joint research initiative, not just for studying the entity, but for exploring all the possibilities our partnership has revealed. Vaxeth's crystalline surface cleared to perfect transparency, the strongest expression of agreement in her species. The old protocols would have had us treat your arrival as a threat, Captain. Instead, we found something far more valuable than security. We found a future we could never have imagined alone. Above them, the entity's manifestation pulsed with patterns that their hybrid systems translated as approval. It had found what it was looking for, not simply advanced civilizations, but species willing to grow beyond their limitations. Dr. Patel looked up from his console, his eyes wide with wonder. The entity is providing coordinates, locations where other species like them have established contact points between realities. They're inviting us to join a network of civilizations that exist across different states of being. A network they believe we're finally ready to join. Chen added, not as separate species, but as partners who have learned to transcend our differences. Ixel's crystal form emanated patterns of pure research joy. The mathematical principles they're sharing. They suggest that the merger of our technologies was just the beginning. There are layers of reality we never dreamed of, and together we can learn to access them safely. The observation dome filled with new light as the entity began another transmission. But this time, Chen noticed something different. The patterns weren't just mathematical or physical. They were telling a story about two species who turned a potential conflict into collaboration, and in doing so, opened the door to something greater than either could have achieved alone. Send word to Earth and the Calarian homeworld, Chen ordered, her voice firm with conviction. Tell them we've not only made first contact with a new form of life, we've discovered a new way of existence, and we did it not through force or fear, but through the courage to adapt and grow together. Vaxeth's form resonated in harmony with Chen's words. The entity's arrival tested both our species. Had we followed our original protocols, we would have seen only threats. Instead, we chose to see opportunities. Perhaps that was the true test all along. As the entity's manifestation danced above them, Chen reflected on how far they'd come. What had begun as a potential military confrontation had evolved into something unprecedented, a partnership that promised to reshape their understanding of reality itself. The adaptable had lived up to its name in ways she never imagined, becoming not just a bridge between species, but a key to unlocking the deeper mysteries of existence. The future that lay ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges they could barely comprehend. But Chen knew that together, humans, Calarians, and their new dimensional allies, they would face it with both the precision of crystal and the adaptability of programmable matter, creating something greater than any one species could achieve alone. In the end, the greatest discovery wasn't the entity or even the new physics it offered. It was the recognition that true progress comes not from power or protocol, but from the willingness to reach across the void and find common ground in the unknown.